Hey, Jack me here. Today I'll be walking you through how we built the MVP for muuzaji, a deal management medium bringing together investors and founders onto a common platform. Yes, dear founder, we no longer have to duplicate our investment materials every time we seek for a funding opportunity. See, what's cool here is we use Pasby for authentication, Firebase to manage user data, and Next.js as our preferred UI too. I'll show you how everything connects inside the UI eventually. Before that, what's the plan? First step is to wire up the auth screens with pass buttons. Second step, to sync our authenticated EID users to Firebase for a robust session management process. And lastly, we ensure the UI works perfectly with our ideated flow. Hoping for the best. Let's dive right in then. Here's a quick look at the code base. We've got a clean setup with the front end in Next.js, Firebase handling our user data and storage. Considering we are working with a NoSQL database in this situation, we structure the user schema to look this way, making proper room for core use of the EID as a reference, and ensuring that all references are correctly indexed for seamless data retrieval. This structure allows us to handle user data efficiently while maintaining scalability for future features. With everything set up, we're ready to build a smooth, functional platform that meets our goals. Okay, now, Pasby is our auth service. Think secure login, identity management, auth flows. Oh, auth flows. My bad. Let's look at how the login works. We trigger a login request from the UI. Pasby handles redirection to a secure OAuth screen where our intended user carries out a consent flow. And on callback, we store the token securely using cookies. The folks from Pasby have thoughtfully made it convenient for developers like you and I to carry out these outflows from our React applications. Since we use Next.js, the Next.js applications would simply just require that we use the SDKs, the Pasby SDK for Next.js or React. Using You could just install the Pasby SDK using any of the package managers of your choice. In our case, we are working with npm. So to install the SDKs, we just put in the type what's on screen straight into your terminal and install that. Before we continue with Pasby, we first need to have a registered app at the Pasby console. Head to console.pasby.africa, authenticate yourself, and create an app under your organization in Sandbox to get going right away. Fill in all the details required and select the product of your choice to be authentication. Since we are working with Next.js, we will select backend or server because Next.js is just that superpowered. Before heading back to code, grab your new app's client ID right there. Add the callback URI, just like the example shown here. On your end, you are definitely free to use any other local hotspots, but always ensure that the paths remain /API/EID/handshake. Why? Because that's the API location that the Pasby SDK uses to communicate with your Next.js app during callbacks. All right, onto the code we go. Starting with the UI, we can get the Pasby auth button from the Pasby Next SDK. We customize that to match our taste as seen here. After placing our button onto the UI, let's continue to configure the API routes to make sure the button can actually be clicked. Uh, as the API route, create a folder named EID and the file route.ts in the In there, simply paste the pre-written code provided by Pasby SDK documentation. After pasting that, you could simply modify the path to match your use case, like changing the payload text, which is to the user would be your intent of data processing. Also, always tell Pasby what ID data information you would love to, you love the user to share with your app after authenticating. The SDK server handler function always requires you to provide a fallback path for failed sessions. That's why we have the slash sessions row paths included in as the last arguments for the function. If you have ever used both SDKs like Kind or Click, then all of this should be very familiar with you. Um, Everything seems good here, so let's move on. Oh yeah, before we do, we have to make sure that our environment variables are set correctly. They should look like this. Please note that secret gen is a random 16 to 18 digit character string to be generated by yourself. And this shouldn't be shared. No, everything in the env file shouldn't be shared. Always remember that. Now we have the EID authentication flow working. We would love to sync the user to Firebase using our Firebase backend. Starting at the Next.js app, we have created an authentication redirect page under session, which calls on the get EID hook provided by Pasby SDK. We do check also if the user is already fully authenticated using our custom hook to make sure we do not perform a double authentication task. At the EID attachment body component, we will be extracting the basic EID claims granted by the user into a simple Firebase user map, which is then communicated to our link EID API route. Keep in mind, for muuzaji, we have separated the Firebase backend API routes to separate Node.js Express code base. This is how the link EID API function looks. The request body takes the EID digits, user's NIN, display name, otherwise full name, email, and if the email is verified. Usually, Pasby EIDs do come with verified emails, which is a great thing. Before we do link the user to Firebase, we ensure to hash up the NIN numbers for best practice. Once that's done, Firebase issues us a custom token, which is sent back to the Next.js client. With the custom token, we could now sign in the Pasby user using Firebase sign in with custom token at the client side. After a successful login, it's very important for us to keep track of the session state. To do this, we employ the use of cookies. Our workaround to get a signed auth token from Firebase is to call our auth cookie API route at the Firebase backend. Here's how the tokenized API route function looks. The request body takes an ID token and a period count towards expiration. Before anything, we do validate if the ID token is real against Firebase and then pass the period string, which would then be used to generate a duration of expiration. To round up, tokenize function, we ask Firebase to create a session cookie which expires exactly as the duration calculated, and return to the client the cookie value and expiration time. Almost there, we have a signed session cookie from Firebase now. We could then further handle the user information. We push the user's info to Firebase just once for new users, and we sync their session info. If a new user, we can update their Firebase auth metadata so it doesn't look like this, but it looks like this on the Firebase console, or whenever we call user.display name, unlike in our code base. Notice how we use Pasby UID or email to uniquely identify users. Finally, Here's how the UI reacts to everything. We use context hooks to know if the user is logged in and we fetch the profile from Firebase. Doing it live, I'll log in and you see how the dashboard updates in real time. Simple and fast, isn't it? And that's a wrap. You've just seen how we wired Pasby and Firebase together to build a foundation for muuzaji. If you've got questions or want to see more behind the scenes, drop a comment. And don't forget to go out there and build your own use cases with Pasby. Hope this was helpful. I'll leave the snippets to every code bunch shown here in the descriptions. Peace and have a good time.